Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast for another deep dive.
Into a captivating true crime mystery.
Tonight,
Oh, yeah.
we're heading to Finland,
All right.
to the shores of a beautiful lake that became the scene of a horrific crime that has haunted investigators for decades. It's a case with twists, turns,
For sure.
and more suspects than you can shake a stick at.
Wow.
Get ready to unravel the chilling story of the Lake Bodom murders.
What's fascinating here is how this case, which took place back in 1960, continues to capture the public's imagination.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that some mysteries never truly die,
Right.
and that the search for truth can be a long and winding road.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And tonight, we're going to take you on that journey,
Okay.
examining the evidence,
Right.
exploring the various theories, and trying to piece together what really happened on that fateful night.
Sounds good.
Now,
Yeah.
to really set the scene,
Right.
imagine yourself back in the summer of 1960.
Okay.
It's June, the weather's beautiful,
Nice.
and 4 teenagers are excited for a weekend getaway.
All right.
We have 2 young couples, Mela Irmeli Björklund and Anja Tulikimäki, both just 15 years old,
Wow. Very young.
and their boyfriends, Seppo Antero Boisman
Hmm.
and Nils Wilhelm Gustafsson, both 18.
Okay.
They decide to head to Lake Bodom,
Uh-huh.
a picturesque spot known for its tranquility and beauty.
Mm-hmm.
They pitch their tent,
Yeah.
ready for a weekend of swimming, fishing, and enjoying each other's company.
It's important to remember the context of the time.
Right.
Camping was a hugely popular activity,
Yeah.
seen as a wholesome and innocent pastime,
Sure.
especially in a country like Finland,
Uh-huh.
where nature is such a big part of the culture.
Right.
These teenagers were simply doing what countless others were doing that summer,
Yeah.
enjoying the great outdoors with their friends.
You're right. It was supposed to be a carefree weekend escape.
Yeah.
But as the sun sets on June 4th, 1960,
Boy.
a darkness descends on Lake Bodom.
Oh.
And this time, it's not just the absence of sunlight.
Okay.
Sometime between 4 and 6 a.m.,
Mm-hmm.
a horrifying attack takes place.
Wow.
3 of the teenagers, Mela, Anja, and Seppo,
Oh my gosh.
are brutally murdered inside their tent.
The level of violence was truly shocking.
Yeah.
The victims were stabbed repeatedly and bludgeoned with a blunt object,
Really?
likely a rock found at the scene.
Wow.
The killer, or killers, clearly intended to inflict maximum damage.
This detail really stood out to me when I was looking at the sources. The sheer brutality of the attack makes it that much more difficult to comprehend.
Yeah.
What kind of rage would drive someone to do this?
Right.
Especially to young people who are just trying to enjoy a summer weekend.
That's a question that has haunted investigators for decades.
Yeah.
And to add to the mystery, the attack happened from outside the tent.
Oh, wow.
The killer sliced through the canvas,
Really?
catching the victims completely off guard as they slept.
Okay, so we have a scene that's already incredibly disturbing.
Right.
But then it gets even more perplexing.
Oh, no.
The killer didn't just commit these horrific murders.
Okay.
They also took some seemingly random items from the crime scene.
Like what?
They took the keys to the victims' motorcycles, but left the motorcycles themselves behind.
Huh.
They also took a pair of sunglasses
Wow.
and some coins.
That's so strange.
It's almost as if they were trying to mislead the investigators,
Yeah.
throw off the scent.
That's certainly one of the many theories that have been put forward over the years.
Yeah.
Was this a random act of violence?
Right.
Or was it something more calculated, more personal?
Yeah.
The stolen items don't seem to follow any logical pattern,
Right.
which makes understanding the killer's motive even more challenging.
Right.
Right.
It's like they were trying to send a message,
Uh-huh.
but the message itself is completely indecipherable.
Wow.
And amidst this chaos,
Yeah.
amidst this horrific scene,
Okay.
there was one survivor,
There was.
Nils Gustafsson. Nils was found lying injured outside the tent.
Oh my gosh.
He had suffered a broken jaw,
Oh, wow.
facial bone fractures,
Jeez.
and multiple stab wounds.
Awful.
But remarkably, he was alive.
Wow, that's lucky.
When he regained consciousness, he claimed to have seen a figure in black with glowing red eyes attacking the tent.
Whoa, that's creepy.
Wow.
A shadowy figure with glowing red eyes.
Hmm.
Sounds like something out of a horror movie.
Right.
But for Nils, this was all too real.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, his survival made him a key figure in the investigation.
Absolutely. He was the only eyewitness,
Right.
the only one who could potentially shed light on what transpired that night.
Yeah, makes sense.
But unfortunately, the initial investigation was plagued by a series of critical errors.
Really?
here's where things get frustrating, right?
Yeah.
You have this horrific crime,
Yeah.
this lone survivor with potentially vital information, and the investigators, they drop the ball.
In many ways, yes. The crime scene wasn't properly secured,
Oh, no.
leading to potential contamination of evidence.
Wow.
Witnesses weren't interviewed thoroughly,
Jeez.
and some potential leads weren't followed up on.
Oh, man.
It was a chaotic scene,
Yeah.
and in the rush to respond, crucial steps were overlooked.
I can't even imagine the impact those mistakes must have had on the case.
Yeah.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Exactly.
Right.
And those missing pieces would continue to haunt the investigation for decades to come.
So with the crime scene compromised and the initial investigation faltering,
Right.
the focus shifted to finding potential suspects.
Okay.
And in a case like this, with such a brutal and seemingly random attack, you can imagine there were plenty of people who came under suspicion.
That's right. Over the years, several individuals emerged as potential suspects, each with their own intriguing and often unsettling connections to the case.
Before we get into those suspects, I just want to remind everyone that if you're finding this deep dive as captivating as we are,
Yeah.
hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the other incredible stories we have lined up on Tell Me More.
Right.
We've got some truly mind-blowing cases coming up,
Oh, wow.
and you won't want to miss a single episode.
Can't wait.
Now let's get back to those suspects.
Okay.
Who was first on the radar?
Well, one of the most prominent figures in the early stages of the investigation was a man named Valdemar Gillstrom.
Okay, Valdemar Gillstrom.
Yeah.
What's his story?
He was a kiosk keeper
Right.
who lived near Lake Bodom
Okay.
and was known for his, shall we say, less than friendly attitude towards campers.
A grumpy kiosk keeper who didn't like campers. Sounds like a recipe for trouble.
That's what a lot of people thought at the time.
Right.
There were rumors swirling around about his volatile temper and some alleged confessions.
Oh, wow.
But the police never found any hard evidence linking him directly to the murders.
So a lot of whispers and speculation, but nothing concrete.
Right.
Did anything else about him stand out to investigators?
There's one detail that's quite chilling, actually.
Oh.
Gillstrom died in 1969 when he drowned in Lake Bodom.
Wait, he drowned in the same lake where the murders took place?
Yeah.
That's incredibly eerie.
It is.
Almost too coincidental to be just bad luck.
It certainly adds another layer of mystery to this already perplexing case.
Right.
Did he take his secrets to the grave? Was his death somehow connected to the events of that night in 1960?
Right.
We may never know for sure.
Okay, so we have a potentially disgruntled local with a history of animosity towards campers and a mysterious death years later in the same lake where the murders took place.
Yeah.
It's not hard to see why he would become a prime suspect.
I can see that.
But he wasn't the only one. Right.
That's right. There were other individuals who caught the attention of investigators, each with their own unique set of circumstances that made them potential persons of interest. One individual who became the subject of intense public scrutiny was a man named Hans Assmann.
Okay, Hans Assmann.
Yeah?
What's his story? What made him a person of interest in this case?
Well, Assmann was a German-born Finnish citizen who became entangled in the Lake Bodom mystery in a rather peculiar way.
Okay.
There were several books published that promoted the theory that he was the killer.
Books pointing the finger at him. That's a lot of attention, even if it's just speculation.
Yeah.
Did these books present any evidence, or was it mainly conjecture?
They did offer some supposed evidence.
Likely.
The most striking being the claim that Assmann showed up at a Helsinki hospital with bloody clothes the day after the murders.
Bloody clothes. That's pretty incriminating, isn't it? Did he offer an explanation?
He did.
What did he say?
Assmann claimed that he was in Germany at the time of the murders.
Okay.
And had a solid alibi.
So how did he explain the blood?
The blood on his clothes, he said, was from a nosebleed.
A nosebleed? That seems like a rather convenient excuse.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially considering the circumstances.
But without any concrete evidence linking him to the crime scene, the police couldn't make a strong case against him. The bloody clothes incident remained a tantalizing piece of the puzzle, but ultimately it wasn't enough to charge him with the murders.
So we have a suspect with a suspicious incident the day after the murders.
Right.
But a seemingly solid alibi.
Yeah.
It's a classic true crime dilemma, just enough to make you wonder, but not enough to definitively prove anything.
Yeah, it really is.
Were there any other suspects the police were considering at this point?
There was one more individual who emerged as a potential suspect,
Oh.
although his story is shrouded in even more ambiguity than the others.
All right, tell me more.
In the mid-1960s, a man named Pentti Suoninen confessed to a fellow inmate that he had committed the Lake Bodom murders.
A confession. Was this the break in the case that investigators had been hoping for?
Not quite. There were some serious doubts about the validity of Suoninen's confession.
Such as?
For starters, he would have been just 14 years old at the time of the murders.
14 years old. That's incredibly young.
Yeah.
Do we know anything about his background? Was there any indication that he was capable of such violence?
There's no evidence to suggest that he had any history of violence or that he possessed the physical strength to overpower 4 older teenagers.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right.
Especially in the brutal manner in which they were killed.
No, I agree.
Some believe he might have been seeking attention or notoriety,
Okay.
while others speculate he may have been coerced or pressured into confessing.
So it sounds like Suoninen's confession was likely a dead end?
Probably.
3 very different suspects.
Yes.
Each with their own strengths and weaknesses in terms of evidence and motive.
Mm.
But ultimately, none of them led to a definitive answer.
No, they did not.
What happened next in the investigation? Did the police continue to pursue these leads? Or did the case go cold?
For decades, the case remained a frustratingly unsolved mystery.
Wow.
Despite numerous investigations and countless hours poured over the evidence, no one was ever brought to justice for the Lake Bodom murders.
Wow.
The lack of a clear motive, the botched initial investigation, and the passage of time all conspired to make this a particularly challenging case to crack.
Yeah, I see that.
It seemed like the truth would remain buried forever beneath the weight of speculation and unanswered questions.
It's amazing to think that despite all the advancements in forensic science and investigative techniques,
Right.
some cases just remain beyond our grasp.
It is.
It's a reminder that sometimes the past holds on to its secrets with an iron grip.
It is indeed. But just when it seemed like the Lake Bodom murders would forever be relegated to the annals of unsolved mysteries, a shocking development occurred in 2004.
This is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? Decades pass. People start to believe the case will never be solved. And then what happened?
In 2004, 44 years after that horrific night at Lake Bodom, Nils Gustafsson, the sole survivor of the attack, was arrested.
Wait, what? They arrested the survivor, but he was the victim. What led to this dramatic turn of events after all this time?
Advancements in forensic technology allowed for a re-examination of the evidence, and the Finnish National Bureau of Investigation concluded, based on new analysis of the bloodstains, that Gustafsson had been responsible for the murders all along.
Wow, that's a complete 180. What was their theory? How could the survivor, the one who was so badly injured, be the perpetrator?
Their theory was that Gustafsson, perhaps fueled by a drunken rage or some unknown personal conflict, attacked the others.
Okay.
The fight escalated, and he ended up killing them.
Okay.
The prosecution pointed to the fact that there was no trace of Gustafsson's own blood found at the crime scene,
Interesting.
suggesting that his injuries were inflicted separately from the attack on the others.
So they were essentially saying he staged the whole thing, faked his injuries, hid any evidence that could incriminate him, and then pretended to be unconscious. It's a bold claim, to say the least.
It is.
Do they have any other evidence to support this theory?
They presented evidence suggesting that Gustafsson might have had a motive, possibly stemming from jealousy or a drunken argument.
Okay.
They also argued that his injuries, while serious, were not consistent with the level of violence inflicted on the other victims.
Right.
Essentially, they were trying to paint a picture of a calculated attack, with Gustafsson deliberately injuring himself to make it look like he was also a victim.
It sounds like a pretty risky strategy, even for a cold-blooded killer.
It does.
To risk your own life and inflict such serious injuries on yourself just to throw off suspicion.
Right.
It's almost too crazy to believe.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what they thought he had done.
Apparently.
What happened next?
Did this new evidence lead to a trial?
It did. The case went to trial in 2005,
Wow.
capturing the attention of not only Finland, but the entire world.
Wow.
The lone survivor, one seen as a victim of a horrific crime.
Was now on trial for the murders themselves.
Jeez.
It was a truly sensational turn of events.
I can only imagine the media frenzy surrounding this case.
I know, right?
What was the atmosphere like at the trial?
It was incredibly tense.
Yeah.
The prosecution presented their case, emphasizing the bloodstain analysis and the absence of Gustafson's blood at the crime scene.
Right.
They painted him as a cold and calculating individual who had managed to deceive everyone for over 4 decades.
And how did the defense respond to these accusations? Did they have any evidence to counter the prosecution's claims?
Gustafson's defense attorney argued vehemently that their client was innocent.
Okay.
They pointed out that his injuries were far too severe for him to have been capable of carrying out such a brutal attack.
Yeah.
They maintained that the murders were the work of one or more outsiders, and that Gustafson was simply a victim caught in the wrong place at the wrong time.
So you had the prosecution arguing that he was a cold-blooded killer who went to extreme lengths to cover his tracks, and the defense claiming he was simply too injured to have committed the crimes.
Yeah.
It's a classic he said, she said scenario, but with incredibly high stakes.
Right.
Who did the jury believe?
After weeks of intense testimony and deliberation, the jury delivered their verdict.
Yeah.
Nils Gustafsson was found not guilty.
Not guilty. After being arrested and put on trial for such horrific crimes, he walked free.
He did.
What were the reasons behind the jury's decision? Did they simply not believe the prosecution's case, or was there something else that swayed their opinion?
The court concluded that the prosecution's evidence was ultimately inconclusive.
Interesting.
They couldn't definitively prove a motive. And after so much time had passed, it was impossible to be certain about the sequence of events that night.
Right.
The lack of a murder weapon and the possibility of contaminated evidence also cast doubt on the prosecution's theory.
So despite the dramatic arrest and the sensational trial, the mystery of the Lake Bodom murders remained unsolved.
It did.
It's back to square one, but with even more questions and layers of complexity added to the mix.
In a way, yes.
Nils Gustafsson was acquitted, but the question of who actually committed these horrific crimes still lingers.
It does.
Officially, the case remains open, but with each passing year, the likelihood of finding the real killer diminishes.
It's incredible to think that despite all the advancements in forensic science, some cases just remain beyond our grasp. Does that mean all hope is lost in finding the real killer? Is it possible that new evidence could emerge? Or a fresh perspective could shed light on what really happened that night?
While it's certainly more challenging to solve a case after so much time has passed, it's not impossible.
Oh, okay.
Cold cases can be solved sometimes years or even decades later
Right.
with new evidence, advancements in technology, or simply a fresh set of eyes looking at the case from a different angle.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of cases, the possibility of finding answers and achieving justice remains.
The Lake Bodom murders serve as a stark reminder that some secrets refuse to stay buried.
For sure.
It's a story that will likely continue to captivate and intrigue people for years to come.
Absolutely. And it's not just armchair detectives and true crime enthusiasts who are fascinated by the Lake Bodom murders.
Really?
The case has also inspired artists and musicians,
Oh, wow.
serving as a source of creative expression and a reminder of the enduring power of unsolved mysteries.
Oh, really? Like who?
Yeah.
What kind of artistic interpretations have emerged from this case?
Well, for example, there's a famous Finnish melodic death metal band called, wait for it, Children of Bodom.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah.
They named themselves after this infamous case.
They did.
It seems like an unusual choice for a band name,
Yeah.
especially when playing such heavy music.
You might think so,
Yeah,
but it speaks to the enduring power of this story.
I guess so.
The band formed in the early 1990s, proving that the mystery of Lake Bodom continued to capture the imagination,
Right.
even decades after the tragedy. They even have a song called Lake Bodom,
Oh, wow.
which directly references the case.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that even the darkest and most tragic events can inspire art and creativity.
It's true.
It's a way of processing the trauma, exploring the unknown, and keeping the memory of these events alive.
Exactly. The Lake Bodom murders may remain unsolved,
Mm.
but the story itself continues to resonate, inspiring everything from books and documentaries
Right.
to music and even art installations.
Wow.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers.
It's a real head-scratcher, isn't it?
It is.
We've gone through all the major suspects,
Uh-huh.
explored the evidence, and even looked at the trial of the sole survivor,
Yeah.
but we're still left with
More questions.
more questions than answers.
Right.
It's like
Yeah, right.
trying to navigate a maze in the dark.
It is, and that's
Yeah.
precisely what makes this case so captivating. The Lake Bodom murders challenge our assumptions about justice and closure.
Right.
We often believe that with enough time and resources,
Mm-hmm.
every crime can be solved.
Right.
But cases like this
Yeah.
remind us that sometimes,
Yeah.
despite our best efforts,
Mm-hmm.
the truth remains elusive.
And in a way, that's what makes it so fascinating, right?
And I think so.
It's that element of the unknown,
Yeah,
that unresolved tension that keeps us hooked.
for sure.
It forces us to confront the limits of our understanding and acknowledge that sometimes
Yeah,
there are no easy answers.
absolutely.
It's a story that stays with you,
Yeah.
prompting you to revisit the details,
Mm-hmm.
analyze the motives,
Mm-hmm.
and try to piece together the puzzle yourself.
Absolutely.
It's a case that sparks debate
For sure.
and encourages us to think critically about the nature of evidence,
Yeah.
memory,
Mm-hmm.
and the very idea of truth itself.
It's a big one.
And that's what we've tried to do tonight.
Mm-hmm.
To delve into the complexities of this case,
Mm-hmm.
present the different perspectives,
Right.
and leave it up to you,
Mm-hmm.
the listener,
Yeah.
to draw your own conclusions.
Right.
Was it one of the suspects we discussed?
Could be.
Was it someone entirely off the radar?
It's possible.
Or was it, as some believe,
Mm-hmm.
a crime committed by a stranger passing through,
Yeah.
someone who disappeared into the night,
Uh-huh.
never to be seen again?
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
And that's part of the allure.
Right.
We're drawn to unsolved mysteries
Yeah.
because they allow our imaginations to run wild.
Right.
They force us to confront the unknown
Mm-hmm.
and grapple with the unsettling notion
Yeah.
that some crimes may never be fully explained.
It's a sobering thought,
It is.
but it's also a reminder that the world is a complex and often unpredictable place.
It really is.
There are events that defy easy explanation,
Yeah.
mysteries that may never be fully unraveled. And the Lake Bodom murders are a prime example of that.
They are.
While the search for answers may continue,
Mm-hmm.
one thing is certain.
Okay.
The story of the Lake Bodom murders will continue to be told and retold,
Yeah.
debated and dissected
Right.
for generations to come.
I believe it.
It's a story that has become woven into the fabric of Finnish history,
Uh-huh.
a chilling reminder of a night of unimaginable horror
Yeah.
and a mystery that continues to defy solution.
Absolutely.
Well, listeners, there you have it.
That's it.
The chilling tale of the Lake Bodom murders.
A tough one.
We've taken you on a journey through the twists and turns of this enduring mystery,
Yeah.
exploring the suspects, the evidence, and the lingering questions that remain unanswered.
There are a lot of those.
We've delved into the psychological complexities,
Yeah.
examined the impact of a flawed investigation,
Right.
and pondered the possibility that the truth may forever elude us.
It's a hard thing to accept.
And now we leave it to you. What do you think happened that night at Lake Bodom?
Good question.
Who was responsible for these brutal murders?
Yeah. Who?
We encourage you to do your own research, explore the various theories,
Absolutely.
and come to your own conclusions.
That's right.
Maybe you'll uncover a detail that was overlooked.
Yeah.
Or perhaps you'll develop a new perspective that sheds light on this enduring mystery.
That would be great.
Whatever you decide,
Mm-hmm.
we hope that this deep dive has provided you with a deeper understanding of the Lake Bodom murders,
Yeah.
a case that continues to fascinate and intrigue even after all these years.
Absolutely.
And if you're craving more captivating stories like this,
Oh, yeah.
be sure to subscribe to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast.
That's right.
We've got a whole library of mind-boggling tales just waiting to be explored.
I can't wait.
Until next time, keep those minds curious
Yeah.
and those questions coming.
Mm.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of the unknown.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks for listening.